Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified the Queer News Tonight YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in the LGBTQ community. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Tuesday, July 8th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present Pride Fete in August, and we declare that love is in the air with Pride Fort Lauderdale on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voice as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Cindy Brown. Cindy has been an activist for the LGBTQ+ community for 35 years, working for or serving on many local nonprofit boards. She served as the founding executive director of Miami Beach Pride and currently sits on the LGBTQIA advisory board for Miami-Dade County. She also runs her own consulting company, Synergy, for nonprofits, helping with finance, strategic planning, board structure, grants, and more. Cindy, Ladywood party to light up Miami, July 17th. Tell me what's happening out.
Wow, this is exciting. On Thursday, July 17th, Miami's lesbian community will turn up the heat at Ladywood, a vibrant new party hosted weekly at Mama's Frozen Margaritas in Wynwood. Organized by Ray Janae and promoted via the Le Chic Instagram account, this lesbian-centered, queer-friendly event promises high energy, bold vibes, and inclusive fun. From 9 p.m. onward, guests will enjoy bottle specials, hookah, outdoor VIP seating, and even Le Chic's signature body shots, all with no cover charge. The event will be held each month and feature fresh female DJs spinning beats, adding variety and excitement to every Thursday night. There's no dress code. It's 420 friendly, and partygoers can engage in games while dancing under the stars. Ladywood welcomes everyone, but puts lesbian joy front and center. Attendees can follow at Le Chic for updates and future DJ lineups. Wow. This sounds like a lot of fun. I'm curious about the 420 friendly though. That I didn't know that you could do that in restaurants now. I know. Wow. But it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of lesbians.
What is
So
that?
yeah, what is that?
I've never heard of her.
Yeah, you're a
Well, I think it's really great because, again, as we all know, there's not a plethora of lesbian establishments to go to. So these pop-up parties are really important to the community, and I hope people come out and support them. I know they're happening in all different places. I've seen them both in Molten Manors, and I think it's great to see the lesbian community creating their own spaces.
Yeah, Les Chic does a lot of lesbian parties, and hey, I'm single, so I need to be out there at these parties, right? Single and ready to mingle.
Have a margarita.
I want a margarita.
And a hookah.
And a hookah.
In Arkansas, that's what we used to call sex workers. But the there's a concerted attack on queer joy.
Yeah.
So anytime that you get together for the just purpose of joy, of sharing joy and being joy, that is resistance. And so I am for anything where we get together and celebrate who we are.
Right.
Well said. I want to go right now. I want a margarita. The only thing is like 9 p.m. That's I want to be asleep by 9 p.m.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm down for
9 p.m. till
I can still
I'd be there from 9 to 10 and then go home.
Well, get out in Wynwood and have some fun. Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Ladywood Party on July 17th. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now let's welcome anchor Bishop Durrell Watkins, the senior minister at Sunshine Cathedral, one of the most important LGBTQ churches in the world. He is an auxiliary bishop of the Global Justice Institute and the current president of the Divine Science Federation. Durrell, Florida's Supercon's Pride Lounge, July 18th to the 20th, will be at Miami Beach Convention Center. Tell me what's happening out.
Florida's Supercon will return to the Miami Beach Convention Center from July 18th to the 20th, and this year the Pride Lounge promises to be a vibrant highlight. Trans Social, I love me some Trans Social. Trans Social will host a welcoming, affirming space inside the Pride Lounge throughout the 3-day event, offering community connection, resources, and representation for LGBTQ attendees. Visitors can expect more than just cosplay and comics. Supercon will feature inclusive programming like gaming, live panels, HIV testing, giveaways, and more. All Pride Lounge experiences will be included with a Florida Supercon badge, making it easy for fans of all identities to engage, celebrate, and be seen. Known for uniting fandoms and celebrating guests under one roof, Florida Supercon 2025 is set to be the ultimate pop culture gathering. With ticket options ranging from VIP to single-day passes, this event will offer unforgettable experiences for everyone. For more details and ticket info, visit floridasupercon.com. And speaking of just super hip and relevant and pop events, I probably should have called it 2025 instead of 2025, but I'm hundreds of years old. This is the story they gave me, so whatever. It actually is. It makes sense, though, that this would be such an exciting thing because queer people, we are the artists, we are the priests, we are the shamans of creativity. Yep. So, of course, we love comics, we love graphic novels, we love drag, we love Broadway. So, anything creative and fun and imaginative, that's us. And if you can get it all together in one big place and get a badge too, that sounds like super fun to me.
Yeah, these kinds of events are always a lot of fun. Yeah. Lots of people, and like you, I'm 100 years old as well. So, I mess up the whole age curve when I go to things like that. But they are a lot of fun, and it's interesting to check it out.
These spaces, like I think about all these cons and all the, like they're so incredibly queer and inclusive, and they taught so many of us from an early age, like comic books and these kind of ideas of inclusivity, of like community and like resilience and resistance. I love these kinds of spaces, and I have to, all those sexy nerds, and I mean that with love. Like I love that. Like I love that we find community in one another in these spaces, and I love the idea of queer joy, which I know you've mentioned before.
Absolutely.
I can't think of anything that's more representative of that.
I mean, you had me at Boys in Tights, so see you there. Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Florida Supercon's Pride Lounge from July 18th to the 20th. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer and nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo Jr., a board member of the Stonewall National Museum Archives and Library. He's a history professor at the Florida International University and the author of the book, Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940. Julio, Bears of South Florida's pool party is set to make a splash on July 13th. Tell me what's happening out.
It's gonna be a splash. The Bears of South Florida will host their sizzling summer pool party on Sunday, July 13th from noon to 4 p.m. at Solstice at Wilton Resort. With just 200 tickets available, this highly anticipated event is expected to sell out fast. Tickets are priced at $35 and include lunch and snacks, but must be purchased in advance. No sales at the gate. Guests will enjoy a clothing optional afternoon of fun with a cash bar, a 50-50 raffle, and plenty of sunshine. Attendees are encouraged to bring towels, chairs, and sunscreen. And while the vibe will be relaxed and chill, sexual activity is strictly prohibited. Organized by the Bears of South Florida, Inc., this party isn't just for fun, it will also raise funds to support local LGBTQ, see what I did there, plus organizations. For more information and tickets, visit BOSFL.org. Don't wait, only a few tickets remain. I love the playfulness of I love all Bears all the time.
Right.
Like, to me, the Bear spaces are always the most inclusive spaces. This sounds just fun. Like, it's all about the sound.
I'm worried, though, that the people with no clothes, if they win the 50-50, where do they put the money? That's what I'm worried about. Like, they're just walking around with their hand all day, and then it's wet and sweaty.
Whenever you do like an underwear, allegedly, I read this somewhere, you just wear higher socks. And you just put all your stuff
that
in your
makes
so-
sense.
I mean, I read
Armbands.
When you're naked, you're walking around in socks?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'd be curious to see how inclusive they really are if a bunch of lesbians showed up and took off all their
There
clothes.
are women bears. There are women there. And the first Bear B&B I ever went to, the first thing I saw was a woman, a Goldilocks with her bears in the hot tub. And they were all naked. So I think...
Was she straight or was she a
Well, I
lesbian?
didn't ask.
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference.
All right,
but,
qualifier. Sometimes
Okay.
the most I don't know. Sometimes people are terrible.
well,
But that's
suck,
not
yeah.
the case here.
But
This is
that's okay.
amazing.
I don't know many lesbians that want to go to a pool party with a bunch of naked, hairy men, so it's probably
Well,
safe.
I will say that Bears of South Florida does do a lot of great
Amazing.
work in the community and gives
Oh,
back.
absolutely.
So it is a
Yeah.
fundraiser. So that's another great reason to support this and it's very hot. So the Bears can't wear clothes.
And
They'll
for
be sweating.
$35,
It's
the right
you
thing
get
to
lunch
do.
and snacks.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
The
the
right thing to do.
It is.
cheapest ticket in town.
We love you and thank you for the awesome work you all are doing.
Yes. And Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Bears of South Florida pool party on July 13th. This is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Jeff Oliverio. He's a financial advisor and certified financial planner with Truist Wealth in Fort Lauderdale. Jeff is one of the founders and the president of Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council. Jeff, SilverServe Luncheon to celebrate LGBTQ+ seniors on July 11th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Well, SunServe will host its next SilverServe Luncheon, a vibrant monthly mixer for LGBTQ+ seniors and allies on Friday, July 11th from 11 to 1 p.m. The event will take place at Hagen Park Community Center, which is located at 2020 Wilton Drive in Wilton Manors. Attendees will enjoy a complimentary lunch while connecting with others in a warm and inclusive setting. SunServe will also provide information about local services and resources available to support LGBTQ+ seniors. This free event, held in partnership with the City of Wilton Manors, will offer self-parking at no cost. While admission is free, guests will be required to RSVP in advance at sunserve.org/SilverServe. Again, I always say the things that SunServe brings to the community, especially the senior community, is very important. These spaces give our seniors places to come out in community. Many who don't either have families or may live alone and have resources available to them. And they typically always do sell out or at capacity, which shows the need for more of these type of programming. So I'm happy to see this is back, and kudos to SunServe for keeping this going and bringing out our community.
Yeah, they do it once a month, and as you said, our seniors are very vulnerable. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. The vulnerability exists across the board, especially now. I've heard some folks who went into an ALF, and this gentleman said to me, I've been out my entire life until now. And it's heartbreaking. So having these kinds of activities for seniors is vital because it could be the only time that they're around other seniors. So
And free parking makes it worth
Free
the day. I
parking,
mean, because
oh,
that's
yeah.
becoming a premium for sure in Milton.
really
So yeah, go for the free parking because you can.
SunServe is killing it. I just think SunServe is a pillar in our community. But also I want to give credit to Wilton Manors. That is that the city's doing a lot of really great
absolutely.
partnership and collaboration to make sure that folks are supported in this way. That is I hate when we just have to like rely entirely on nonprofits that is without the government to assist. Like we need more of that. So I don't want to, but thank you to SunServe and thank you to the cities like Wilton Manors that are continuing to support the most vulnerable among us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the SilverServe Luncheon to celebrate LGBTQ plus seniors on July 11th. And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Jeff Oliverio, and let's queer up trans rights. California defies Trump ban on trans athletes in schools. In a bold stand for trans rights, California officials are refusing to comply with an order from Donald Trump's administration to bar transgender athletes from K-12 school sports. On June 27th, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon gave the state 10 days to sign a resolution agreement demanding an end to trans-inclusive sports policies, and even called for personalized apologies to cisgender athletes who lost to transgender competitors. But California's response is a firm no. Len Garfinkel, General Counsel for the California Department of Education, wrote that, quote, the California Department of Education respectfully disagrees with OCR's analysis, and it will not sign the proposed resolution agreement, end quote. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's office went further, calling the document a political move without legal force. Newsom's communication director, Izzy Gardone, added that McMahon was confusing government with her WrestleMania days, dramatic, fake, and completely divorced from reality. McMahon did not mince words either, firing back on Twitter, writing, quote, California has just rejected our resolution agreement to follow federal law and keep men out of women's sports. Turns out, Governor Newsom's acknowledgement that it's an issue of fairness was empty political grandstanding, adding that he would be hearing from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Shannon Minter of the National Center for LGBTQ Rights said, quote, this administration is targeting California in an attempt to intimidate it into backing away from its strong anti-discrimination laws. I'm encouraged to see the California Department of Education is standing up to that, end quote. For now, California's message is clear. Trans kids belong on the field, on the court, and in the fight for fairness. You know, the thing that's really frustrating about these stories is I feel like it's a trap because it's forcing our community to constantly be out in front, of course, defending the trans community, which we should, of course, but it's also making the entire focus of things to take away from all of the other really terrible things that are happening. Like, again, trans people in sports is such a I won't even say narrow, is the slimmest of issues across the country where healthcare for trans people is so much more important.
Healthcare for everybody.
Healthcare for everyone, for, cutting and so it's just like they keep setting these traps that of course we have to keep defending. And I keep thinking, what are the traps that we can set so that we can catch them having to come out to they have such easy targets on the trans community, the immigrant community, they set up these traps.
They bait us.
And then, as topics for people that are not connected to the communities or not connected to these immigrants or to trans people or LGBTQ people or black people, whatever the organization is that they're coming out against, that they're on the sideline saying, well, oh, why does that matter? Why is Gavin Newsom focusing on that? And he's not focusing on that, but it's a trap that they keep setting up, and it keeps recycling itself. And we do a story like this probably every single time I'm here.
Right. I have a caveat to that, because in high school I was a student athlete, and my feeling is that if a boy reaches puberty, then there should and then transition, there should be a waiting period, because once a young man hits puberty, there are changes in his body. And if a 10th grader at the end of the school year realizes that they are trans and goes through the changes, 3 months or 4 months later in the next school year, I don't think it's appropriate for that person, that newly identified trans person, to compete against women. That is completely off if you have someone like Jazz Jennings transition before puberty.
Yeah.
So, and when you're talking about college athletes, I still believe in the time. Like, if you transition, you can't go next week and compete against females. I think there should be a time period. But I believe once that time period is done, they should absolutely be able to compete.
These are questions that can be answered by endocrinologists and pediatricians and psychiatrists, and those people are involved. These attacks on trans people are not taking medical questions and timing. That's not what they're about. It's just about attacking the other.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes it. Of course, you have to do things appropriately and for your health and what's fair and blah, blah. But there are people involved in all of that. That's the way it's going to be. But McMahon, she doesn't care about any of that. This is just.
She knows about fairness in sports, though. She was the head of a sports organization.
But the head of a WrestleMania?
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and, well-known scholar, Mrs. McMahon, Mrs. WWE. But yeah, no, this is about cruelty and bigotry, and of course there's all kinds of nuances, but they're not nuancing, they're just attacking.
Right.
The kind of story here of transitioning that is so often in this kind of playbook you see more sophisticated understandings of transitioning in an episode of Family Guy or something. Right. You know what I mean? Like people come out and they're oh, this transformation that happens overnight. This is exactly what you said. There are healthcare professionals, there are psychologists, who are with you, and therapists who are working with every part of this process to ensure that this is a safe and this is not a decision that's made on a whim. And also the kind of clear indications. Hormones play much less roles in the way that we succeed in sports or in these kinds of. The thing that's most likely going to determine whether you're really good at sports is how rich your parents are. Right. That's where the statistics are most clear. That is, if your parents got money to pay for good coaches, you're going to do well. Right. That's usually the indicator.
And good, athletic diet, and yes, exactly.
I mean, it's interesting because when my son was playing basketball, I remember that I didn't know about this. I was not a student athlete. Shocker. In high school, I was in the choir also, Cindy. So it was interesting because there's a thing where you can de-age your kids so that they're they're competing as a 9th grader, but they're really 16. And this whole thing where you can start them at a different age. So it's very similar if you think about it with genetics of puberty and all these other things.
It's called cheating.
Yes. Or if you're 6'2" and you're in the 7th grade, you could be playing on the varsity high school basketball team because your skill set is there. So again, there is a level to say if you are a trans athlete and you have to go through some kind of qualifying round to see where do you fit in the if you're a runner, are you at the level of somebody? What abilities are you at? Test people and put them in the category they belong. I mean, it's very simple.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be that complicated.
I feel like we have to say this just because we're in Florida, but thank you to California for being the anti-Florida. That is so much of it's such an important thing to say. Because I want to see more people just saying no. This is absolutely nuts, and this is not. I don't give authority to things that are based on fallacies and
evil,
not factual and
and
ideological and completely devoid of evidence. Like, that's just not, there is no agreement here. Right. We don't agree to things that are systemically wrong, right? Like, and that's important to say.
And I think it's important to say, which we didn't talk about today with Linda McMahon being the Secretary of Education, that, you know, I think in Florida, it was on the Sun Sentinel today, they cut like $45 billion from like education funding for the state of Florida, and it's happening across the entire United States.
So they can give tax cuts.
That's not being talked about at all.
To your point, that while 1% of the are being tormented.
Look over here.
Right. 1% of our kids are being tormented, and we have to respond to that. But that also does keep us from everyone else is getting hosed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Cindy Brown, and let's queer up lesbian and queer women. Lesbian tennis star Billie Jean King stands up for trans athletes, urges inclusion. Tennis legend and lesbian icon Billie Jean King is speaking out for transgender athletes and asking the world to listen more than lecture. In a wide-ranging interview with The Telegraph ahead of Wimbledon, the 80-year-old queer trailblazer emphasized the importance of empathy and inclusion. King said, quote, "I don't think people have any idea of how hard it is for trans people. Just listen to their stories. Listen, not tell them. Everyone is unique. Make them feel included because you really don't know," end quote. Her remarks come as trans athletes, especially trans women, face rising attacks from Donald Trump's political allies and Republican-led states. King, a lifelong advocate for social justice, won her first Wimbledon title at the age of 17 in 1961 and has collected 20 Wimbledon championships over her storied career. She made history in 1973 with her Battle of the Sexes victory and helped secure equal prize money for women at the U.S. Open. From trans inclusion to global engagement, King continues to lead with wisdom, urging sports and society to meet each moment with courage, compassion, and conversation. You know, Billie Jean King has always been an outspoken athlete, outspoken lesbian, and I remember the Battle of the Sexes in 1973 when she kicked Bobby Riggs, right? Bobby Riggs' butt. And nobody thought that she would be able to beat a man, but she did. So
I was 6, but I remember because all the women in my family were like, it was a big deal.
Yeah,
you know,
it was a big
even though I don't think watch the game, I'm only 6, but right. I remember the story vividly. It was a big chat for a long time.
Yeah.
She's always been such a trailblazer, and I love the story for some. I'm a fangirl. I've always been, and every time anytime she's anywhere, she has so much to say, and she listens. Like you just even when she's being interviewed, you just hear her. She's really thoughtful about what's being asked of her. She's just really wise, and I think she's been on the right side of history time and time again, and that just comes from experiencing what it must have been like to be in that space where she was, despite her talent, right? And despite that she was always kind of put second and always and she, instead of just kind of taking the money and doing this moment where she made things better for everyone else.
Right. And still doing it. And 80 years old and still doing it.
Check out her memoir too. Her memoir that came out a few years ago is just amazing. She's so smart. She's so smart. I love her.
And she's the antidote to our South Florida neighbor, Martina Navratilova, who is, again, coming out against trans athletes on a regular basis, who now identifies as LGB in her pronoun or as her initials, and has erased the T and the Q. She will not use that in any, and, you know, again, going to that place where she's, you know, following the lead of something that really, again, she doesn't have the expertise to be talking about, and also not being a wholehearted supporter of our trans brothers and sisters in our community. But yet she claims to be she claims that she has been on the front lines for LGBTQ equality her whole life. LGB equality her whole life. So thank you, Billie Jean King. Really hope you're around for a whole more years to keep spreading your knowledge and wisdom.
Not drawing imaginary needless lines.
Right,
Where do you draw the line? How about nowhere?
And Martina, just because you don't say the T doesn't mean they don't exist. So get over it.
Yeah, send you to Harry Potter land. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Bishop Durrell Watkins, and let's queer up faith. Indiana church under fire for anti-LGBTQ sermon urging violence. An Indiana church is drawing national outrage after hosting a Pray the Gay Away event where speakers openly called for violence and death against queer people. Stephen Falco, a preacher at Shore Foundation Baptist Church, used a homophobic slur from the pulpit during a sermon live streamed on Facebook. Falco said queer people should kill themselves or be murdered, adding, quote, "There's nothing good to be proud about being a faggot. You're so disgusting," end quote. Another speaker, Wade Raleigh, endorsed Falco's message. Despite widespread backlash, the church doubled down. Evangelist Justin Zhang issued a public statement defending the speakers, writing, quote, "I will not apologize for preaching the word of God. I will not apologize for stating facts. I will not negotiate with terrorists, among whom the LGBT HIV crowd is full of domestic terrorists." We won't deal with the grammar of that. But going on, faith leaders and LGBTQ plus advocates condemned the statements. The concerned clergy of Indianapolis told Newsweek, quote, "Such messages are not only theologically irresponsible, but pastorally dangerous," end quote. As calls grow for accountability, this story has sparked fresh debate over hate speech, religion, and queer safety in America. I'm going to try to be civil about this. I often fail, but I'm going to try to be civil about this. First of all, there's no such thing as facts when we're talking about religion. Religion is philosophy, literature, myth, very creative stuff. And very important, and they expose a lot of truths, but almost no facts, because it's not science, it's not math, it's not technology. Right. So first of all, get over yourself with your facts, because that's not what this business is about. The other thing, the word of God, that is a euphemism, doesn't mean anything to anybody outside your little world, because the human words that you were quoting, you may call the word of God if you want to, but not everyone does, and that's still not a license to hate. You may firmly believe it, that is the word of God, but that is not the words of God. That is the words of people that you have chose to negotiate with to justify your hatred and cruelty. Let's see, do I have a third point? Oh yeah, fuck you. That is my other point.
That civility went out the window.
See, I meant well. But no, because it makes me angry. It makes my job hard. It makes my life hard, because I'm queer, so it makes my life hard. But I am also, I lead a spiritual community, so it makes my job hard. These people who are wounded so badly from the thing I'm trying to offer, it makes my life very, very difficult. I don't care what you believe. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in me. You don't believe in anything. But I do want to have a safe place where you can come and ask your questions, where you can figure it out for yourselves, and maybe even have a good time doing it, and certainly never be wounded while you're doing it. And people like this are just dangerous. They domestic terrorists, my ass. This is the terrorism. This is the terrorism right here. And so, yeah, this is. I hope they're on an FBI watch list, because this is unconscionable. Absolutely. And of course, they're being encouraged by current politics or whatever. But that's not how you treat people. That's not how you talk about people. And so, of course, yeah, we get to stand up. We get to oppose that, because not only is that not the word of God, that is not even the word of a decent person.
Right. And, for years now, ministers or pastors, and I use these air quotes because, they're absurd, have been calling for the death of LGBTQ people. I remember one minister years ago said, we all should be lined up and a firing squad should just shoot us all down. And, you know, I'm not a believer per se, but I know that they believe when they die, they're going to come before the pearly gates. And I would just love to be there to listen to them being chastised by their God and sent to hell, because that's where they belong. If there is a hell, they belong there.
I amen to that. Too much religious language. Right. I also just want to say, Durrell, thank you. You gave me goosebumps as you said that, because it's grateful to have you as a pillar in our community for saying all the right things and making us all feel safe and comfortable. And that is. And Cindy, the way you also gave me goosebumps, but everyone gives me goosebumps. But that's not true. But we need more of that. That is the idea that we to hear these. That you spoke so eloquently about where we fit into these spaces, where we stand to say no, right? That we don't have to take this kind of language. That is the acronym that he used, the LGBTQ HIV.
Never
to
heard
me, of course,
no one's
right?
ever
Because
heard
They made it up. It's a made up
to
thing.
me, it's so telling, because for those of us who know this history, right, and experienced it, it recalls moments of HIV/AIDS in the early days of HIV/AIDS. That is asking for our deaths, right? And so
I'm
that is
35 years HIV positive. From the years 1994 to 1997, I did 100 funerals. All before I was 30, and never for anyone over the age of 50. So, yeah, that sort of just glib, cruel. Yeah, that you've just dismissed thousands of lives. Thousands of lives. And of course, they're doing it for the shock value. And I'm even chastised. I promise you, when they see this tonight or tomorrow, they're going to say, well, then why are you talking about it? Why are you giving them airtime? Because us ignoring it doesn't mean other people haven't heard them. We need to let you know that that's out there, and that's why your vote matters, and that you voted all matters. And also what you contribute to. So you do need to know about it. Yes, it's ugly. Yes, we don't like talking about it. We would much rather talk about sex and leather parties and bear pools and bear soup
and lesbian camping.
And lesbian camping.
Margarita lesbian.
And womanwood or whatever. We would like to do all of that. Ladywood. We would love to do all of that. But this is also important.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
And just because you ignore evil doesn't make it go away. So we have to talk about it, and maybe form a plan of safety. That's why all of our organizations are basically a fortress, so that you can have a safe place to be and process and make a plan, because we need one.
And I just think it's so important. I go back to when I used to do PFLAG in here at SilverServe, and parents who would come in who were very religious, and they would find scripture and go back to all of those things, and we always went to a place of what is the meaning of having religion and having faith. It's about love. And to see someone who's pretending to be a religious figure to preach hate is just
nuts.
It's the antithesis of what religion is supposed to be about. It is being used as a weapon, and it's even scarier because, again, in the news today the IRS ruled today that now churches can make political recommendations and
partisan,
and so not that they weren't basically already doing it in these type of spaces. But it's just, it's this indoctrination that's happening in the pulpit from political figures and this conservative religious right wing nationalist party that's coming for anyone else who's different. So it's scary. And we do need to keep talking about it, because I think a lot of even our family and friends, I think when we tell them that these things are happening, when they're like, oh, who doesn't like gay people? They're like, people are doing this. Sometimes I've had people see these stories and they're like, I've had family members watch the show and they're like, oh, that story was so awful that you did. I can't believe that. And I'm like, because they're not seeing these stories on, this is not getting onto CNN.
I remember when I told a friend of mine once that the federal government does not offer protections for sexual orientation. She was like, oh, that's wrong. That's ridiculous. That is not true. Well, guess what?
And this is a diabolical thing they do. This is a trick where by calling it Word of God, that is meant to shut down the conversation. I am quoting a deity that you can't find, you can't question, you can't examine. So I'm quoting this unfindable deity, and that's just so I'm right and I win.
Right.
That is, of course, that's manipulation. But if you want to play the biblical tit for tat game, every single thing you say from the Bible has within the Bible a counterpoint. It has a contradiction. So that's just a silly game anyway. But what they never talk about, when they ever find something that I get to be hateful because I found a verse anonymously written on a document that no longer exists. There are no original documents by any scripture, not one. You can't compare them because they don't exist. But because they've quoted something that's supposed to end it. But what they never quote is the golden rule. What they never quote is love your neighbor. What they never quote is the good Samaritan, where the religious people following the rules are the bad guys of the story, and the other who is neighborly and kind to someone in need is the good guy in the story. The queer is the good person in the story. The drag queen is the good person in the story. So that's what the good Samaritan is. And that's what they never quote. So quote if you want to, but it's not about the quotes. You quote that, and I'll quote Mad Magazine. It's not about the quotes. It's about, are you trying to be a decent person or not? And maybe give that a try.
Right, absolutely.
Ooh, well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Julio Capo, and let's queer up gay culture. Fighting for love, polyamorous families push for legal recognition. Polyamorous families have always existed, but now they're demanding visibility, dignity, and legal protection. A new generation of LGBTQ activists and lawyers is working to ensure that relationships involving more than two partners are no longer hidden in the shadows. Take the story of Cam McDonald, Brian Lauder, and Tristan Chirico. Cam met Tristan on a gay dating app 3 years after marrying Brian, and the trio never planned a polyamorous setup. Now, in a committed throuple for nearly 8 years, they share a New York City apartment, yet face serious legal hurdles. If Tristan were hospitalized, his partners couldn't have visitation rights. They can't share insurance, and even inheritance rights are murky. Lawyer and longtime activist Diana Adams says this isn't rare. That is, 4 to 5% of U.S. adults practice non-monogamy, and 31% of millennials describe their relationships as non-monogamous. But without legal recognition, poly families face housing discrimination, custody battles, and job loss, all because their relationship structure isn't protected under current law. PLAC, that's the Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition, is pushing back, drafting legislation, and educating city councils. And small wins are happening, from domestic partnership policies in cities like Somerville, Massachusetts, to a precedent-setting New York court ruling. Advocates believe it's time U.S. law caught up with love in all of its forms. You know, I love that this is, like, the story is really introducing us to, like, what's coming, I think, down the pike, and it's an interesting time for such an issue to come to the fore, really. And of course, as the story said, it's not new. And we're seeing so many parallels with same-sex marriage, where even Mormon, like, you know, there's so many kind of precedents here for us to think about different ways that families take, right? And relationships take, and the ways that the state either recognizes or doesn't. And if there's one thing, like when we think that we get married, that we're like in some kind of relationship with our partner, we're in a relationship with the state. Like that's really what we're doing, right? Is we find a relationship with the state that ties us to all these things. But it's because of these very dire needs, right? That is, imagine a New York City apartment, like this particular case, and, you know, it's daunting. Housing insecurity, we have, you know, food insecurity, we have like the inability to get health care. All of those things are caught up on our real relationships and our, you know, I like to see how this can develop in ways, and for the conversation to move towards ideas of greater equity and access to people that doesn't necessarily have to hinge always on ideas of marriage in the traditional way, because I also love the queerness of not going through these kind of routes. That is, I think all these things can coexist, and I hope that the conversation finds ways to just expand healthcare, make affordable housing, and in addition to, find legal rights for people who are in thruples or in other spaces.
And you know, I think that, you know, it will happen. It probably isn't going to happen tomorrow, but there are a lot of look at the Mormons that take multiple wives. That's nothing new. Yeah. And it is happening, and there needs to be a way to craft somehow protections. Like before we were granted same-sex marriage, we had to protect ourselves with multiple legal documents and powers of attorney and
limited
medical
partnerships
and I would recommend that right now, because that's the only way it's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
Liz Schwartz, Elizabeth Schwartz.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Don't call her Liz.
Excuse me.
Elizabeth Schwartz. She's my attorney.
Yes.
I don't have the capacity, I don't have the legal skill or whatever to tackle the legality of it. But from a religious standpoint, I always tell people I'm doing a wedding, your marriage didn't start today. We're celebrating it today. Your marriage started when you made your commitment and started living your life as a couple. That's when your commitments and that's when it started. Now, you're just letting us in on the party today. Thank you for that. And I have done blessings for arrangements that weren't just couples. Because in the Anglican tradition, you bless the hounds for the hunt that's going to go kill a fox. I've blessed swimming pools and cars. Once during St. Francis thing, I blessed a snake. It wrapped around my neck and I blessed it. There was a donation involved, but still to the church, not to me. But I'm saying, if I will bless your snake, of course I'll bless your family. It's in my business how you formed it or what your life together is like or whatever. And if you're talking about biblical family values, I can name you, first of all of the patriarchs. The biblical family, Solomon had 700 wives, 300 concubines, and a one-night stand with the Queen of Sheba. I have never met someone who kept up with that record. So I don't know what the legality is. I don't know about the complexity. I don't care. I'm monogamous mostly because I'm lazy. I can't be bothered to do anything else. But if you have your life and your agreement, I'm just so happy if you're happy. Of course I'll bless that. I'm so tired of people trying to control your brain, your heart, and your crotch. I can't be bothered with any of that.
Right.
You heard it here, first, folks. Bishop Durrell Watkins wants to bless your snake.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
No, have done. Didn't want to, but have done.
That's all I heard.
It's interesting because the conversation right now, a lot of, a big conversation, of course, is around, Social Security and benefits. Right. And let's take our president, for example. He has 3 wives, 2 of which he's been married to for more than 10 years. So when he passes away, both of those wives will receive Social Security benefits for the rest of their life, as long as you've been married for 10 years. How many people in our community have been in long-time relationships that were not married, that would not be qualified for that? And so these type of arrangements are really, again, not just favoring traditional marriage, but again, the archaic traditional man-woman marriages that existed. I mean, I have clients that, regularly it's like, oh, well, I'm getting my first husband's Social Security benefit because my current husband made less money than him. And I'm like, when were you married to them? Oh, in the 70s for like 10, you could, again, over someone who's 80 years old could be married. I mean, look at Elizabeth Taylor. She's got, how many husbands did she have? Like, if you're married to somebody for 10 years, you get full Social Security benefits for that person. So it's crazy to imagine that we're allowing that to exist today in 2025, that everybody who's married for as long as you can stay married for 10 years, but yet we're not giving those same type of protections and benefits to people who are in current relationships. Right. I mean, existing relationships that are valid and real, and that person is willing to go out and say, I want these people to have the legal protections that we all are subject to without having to do your own legal documents.
Right. And if we're not going to have affordable education, and if we're not going to have universal health care, then these things are how people also get some of those things. So it is a justice issue, really.
And for all the reasons Jeff just said and everyone else said, to me, one of the things that gets left out of this conversation, by the way, I'm very pro-marriage, to be very clear that I don't, one of the things that gets left out of this is that for a long, long time, straight couples have had a pathway to citizenship. That is for this, that same-sex marriage and any form of marriage is an immigration issue too. Yes. And in moments where immigrants are being targeted and undocumented, that is to imagine more expansion of validating our families, our relationships, more of that. I want to see more of that. And that's anything that kind of has a pathway to saying that we belong is important.
Yeah, love is love, and we should always celebrate love.
Absolutely. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Jeff Oliverio, and let's queer up drag culture. Drag U gives Texas queers power, pride, and a place to belong. At a time when LGBTQ Texans, especially trans folks, are facing growing attacks from lawmakers, one program in Houston is offering something rare: joy, pride, and power through drag. Drag University, a free program founded by the Normal Anomaly Initiative, is creating a lifeline for Black and Latino queer Texans. As the Washington Post reports, Drag U doesn't just teach lip syncing and fashion. It's teaching survival in a state that continues to lead efforts against LGBTQ rights. This summer's class brought together 8 working class queer people in their 20s and 30s, each finding power in performance. One student, Sikaru, identifies as a drag thing. Barry Kay, a cis woman, said she was channeling the divine feminine. And Chloe Montgomery, a trans woman, came to the program after starting hormone therapy. What she found at Drag U was community and the courage to be seen. Students were mentored by local organizers and national icons like Akira Chanel Davenport and Giselle Barbie Royale. They even received legal guidance on name changes from Harris County Judge Lillian Alexander. During the graduation week, each student received $250 to create their final look. Montgomery chose a floral dress she bought for just $25, even though she could barely afford it on her $16.50 an hour wage. She performed Beyoncé's Dance for You. In a state where being queer can feel dangerous, programs like Drag U remind the community, you are powerful, you are seen, and you are worthy of celebration. Oh, wow. Yes. I love a good feel-good story. I love seeing that this, again, in Texas, which is much like here in the state of Florida, is on the front lines of attacks against the LGBTQ community, especially the trans community. And these safe spaces are just affirming, welcoming, and again, as we have stated over and over, a place for queer joy to live and be your best true self. So I love this. Keep doing what you're doing and keep shining.
You know, there are a lot of really LGBT affirming cities and spaces within these deep red states. And, you know, I'm only grateful that there's a place to find community and find support and be together, even when, you know, Paris is burning around you, right?
Isn't the new mayor of San Antonio lesbian?
Yes. You're right.
So San Antonio is one of those places.
Yes, and former mayor of Houston was lesbian. She was the chief of police or something, and then mayor. So anyway, there's some urban areas, some university areas in these horrible, in these difficult states for queer people. So all of that is very true. I'm very angry that I have never myself came up with the name Bovine. I thought that was the best drag name I have ever seen.
That's clever.
Bovine it is. But no,
doesn't that mean cow?
It does. So that's why it's so great.
That's
right?
Right.
Yes,
great.
So these people though, and I love that it was about the economic justice. They were all working class. That it was about racial and ethnic justice. It's about gender justice and sexuality. And arts of any kind are subversive. They are how you get your voice out there. It's how you challenge the norms. Drag is a very powerful art. And so that they're using this to empower individuals in places that are determined to disempower hooray for Drag U. Yeah. I want to enroll or maybe be on faculty.
I want all of it. It's funny, Cindy said Paris is burning, because when I first heard this story, my head immediately went how this harkens back to the ballroom scene.
Right, yes, exactly.
And taking inspiration from, especially uplifting Black and brown queer folks and gender nonconforming people. That is to find this, everything, that this is economic justice, it's about racial justice, it's about finding community where it's so difficult to find community when the state tells you don't belong, and you're we're going to craft and carve out a space for ourselves. And I love that. And that's what the community has been doing for decades and centuries, really. And to see that kind of exist now in this particular climate, can't have enough of it.
Yeah, now more than ever. It's essential for even being alive
Yeah.
for some people.
Survival.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Well, those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ family.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family and join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and in sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Jeff Oliverio, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Cindy Brown, Bishop Durrell Watkins, and Dr. Julio Capo Jr., we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Into our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, be transformative, and queer. Good night.
Night.